Hey, TechKnowStuds. You know, a race condition is a common vulnerability. So in this video, let's get into what a race condition is so we can better understand it. We'll kick things off with what is a race condition. We're going to get into where we might find a race condition. We're going to talk about some race condition terms, and then we'll give a couple examples of a race condition. So what is a race condition? Well, essentially, two different processes happen at the same time, which causes a conflict. They step on each other's toes and causes a conflict between what they're trying to achieve. And let's give an example of this. And there's lots of examples we could give, but we're going to give an example of two different programs. It could actually be the same program, but it's multi-threaded and two processes are happening at the same time. But in this example, let's just use two different programs. All right, and they both have access to some variable. And this variable is going to be stored here, and it's A3. So now what happens is they do a check. They're going to say, okay, well, what is this variable? So this program does it, and it's a 3. Pretty shortly after that, this program does the same thing, and it's a 3. And now they're going to both carry out this function where they need to increment this by 1. And so both these programs increment it by 1. They both come up with 4 as the answer. So this program then puts back a 4, and there's a 4 that's stored here. And then this program puts back a 4. And now you've incremented this from a 3 to a 4. So you've just incremented it by 1, even though we should have incremented it by 2. And that's a race condition, that they both have tried to execute this process at the same time and caused the conflict. Now, race conditions can take many different forms, but one thing that we can think about when it comes to the name race condition is you can think of it as multiple programs or processes that are racing to get their processing done first. So where are some of the places that we see this? Well, I just mentioned processing. So processing happens where maybe they're processing data at the same time and they step on each other's toes. Or it could be storage. They could go and try to store the same file at the same time and cause a conflict. And I've seen this with programs like Dropbox or OneDrive or different programs that share resources, and you have syncing issues with that. So that would be an example of that. Or memory. Maybe there's something stored in memory and they both have access to the same memory allocation there. Then that could be a problem. Or even with networking, and two things could happen across the web at the same time and cause a problem. Because what we have here is we're storing this variable 3 here. We have the time of check for operation A, which is over here. And then we check again with operation B over there. And then we have the time of use being much later. So that's where the problem comes into play. Let's say we're running an e-commerce site. And this e-commerce site sells a lot of different products. One of the products that we sell is worth $321. We have a user that comes to our site that's interested in this product that costs $321. Now, what we're going to do to get this user to purchase right now is we're going to show them a promo code. We're going to say that if during checkout, if you type in promo, then you are going to get $50 off. And that is hopefully going to prompt this user into buying this product. So when the user makes it to checkout, what they're supposed to do is type in promo into the promotional field, and then they're going to hit the apply button. And that's actually going to apply it to the price, this $50 off, to make it $271. Now, one thing we probably don't want to have happen is we don't want to have multiple promotional codes being applied, that the end user can only have one discount applied to the final price. So in our code, what we're going to do is we're going to write in something that checks to see, is there any other promotional codes applied? Is there any other discounts? So this is the time of check right here. Is there anything being applied at this point in time? Well, it's going to say no. Well, if that's the case, then we're going to subtract $50 from this. And then after that, we're going to maybe turn a flag on saying there's now a promotional code being applied. But what we didn't realize is that this user has special software running. And what it's going to do is this field that enters in the promo code and the execute button or the apply button to apply the promotion, what they've done is they've duplicated this. In fact, they've duplicated it 6 times, so it enters these in 6 times simultaneously. And so what happens is we have each one of these processes that are started, and at the beginning we have the time of check that says, is there a promotional code applied? And each one of these comes up with a no, there's no promotional code applied. And then what happens in the middle is that each one of these subtract $50 from the final price. And then at the end, that's when it changes the flag and says, oh, we now have a promotional code applied. And so now the total price has been reduced by $300, and this user is going to buy that product for $21. As an IT admin, I ran into this a lot of times when I'm decommissioning or terminating an account. That is, when people get laid off or they leave the company, it's the job of IT to make sure all the services are turned off, that user can't get into any of the systems after that. And what I found is that the time of check for a lot of systems is during login, or there's sometimes times of checks along the way. So when a user logs into a system, they gain access to a lot of different systems. Maybe they gain access to instant messaging, their email, some sort of database, some files. So they get access to different stuff. One of the things when it comes to Windows machine is they get applied all of their group permissions during this time. And now they have access to all of that. And let's say now somebody is being fired and they've communicated with IT, and we've got a certain time that this needs to be turned off, that all their accounts need to be turned off. And so what my team would then do is they would go and start shutting down the email, they'd start shutting down things like Active Directory, they start shutting down things like instant messaging. They would shut all that down, take away all of the rights for the user. Well, some of the systems would happen right away. Things like our instant messaging system, they would be locked out as soon as we turned off their permissions into it. Email would take a while. Email would be at least 15 minutes before they would actually get shut down from there. Group permissions, it was from the login perspective. So group permissions for these users, they would have access as long as they were still logged into their machine and would have access to a bunch of resources. So we needed to make sure that they would be logged off of their machine during that time. Another issue is that if this machine was not connected to the network, they were not actively connecting into Active Directory, and they would have cached credentials. And so as long as their machine wasn't connected into the network, then they can continue to log into that machine, even though they wouldn't have access to any of these other resources. Once they were logged in, they would still have access to resources on the machine. So as you can see, that this is still a big vulnerability today. That there are definitely some ways that we can get around this and implement changes to it, but in certain areas, we still struggle with these race conditions. So in this video, we talked about what is a race condition. We got into where we might find a race condition, whether it be for networking or for processing or for memory or storage. We got into different race condition terms like the time of check and time of use. And then we got into some examples of race conditions.